I think most of us at one time or another have dreamed of meeting that perfect person, falling in love, getting married, and starting a family. Linda Shoeblack was no exception. Only her love story is full of dreams answered, unexpected tragedies, and miracle after miracle. The miracle of true love was the last thing 39-year-old Linda Shoeblack expected to find when she moved to Sackett's Harbor, New York in the summer of 1993.
I'd just gone through a series of many losses in my life, and I wanted to be alone, and I wanted to reflect and get to know who I was as a person and as a spiritual being. So it was a good healing place for me.
Linda prayed for guidance.
And I got to the point where I was able to ask the Lord for a husband.
It wasn't long before her prayers were answered.
After I prayed, I sat and waited patiently and just listened, and it came to me that God was going to send me a godly husband. His name would be David, and he would send him right to my door.
And as if on cue, a determined-looking man came running up the street.
And I look up, and here comes this handsome man with big brown eyes and big smile on his face.
My name is David.
David sat down to talk, and Linda knew immediately that there was something special about him.
I could see his soul in his eyes, and there was a lot of depth, and I was drawn right into them.
Theirs was a match made in heaven. On their first date, they went to church together. Shortly afterward, David proposed. They were married a few months later in Arizona, where David had been posted to Fort Huachuca. After the night they celebrated their marriage, David got up early to go for his usual morning run. Linda was scheduled to attend a meeting of Red Cross volunteers that morning, and so she left David a note to find when he got home. That's when disaster struck.
I heard sirens, and there were a lot of them. I could tell that there were several fire engines and ambulances. So I paused and I prayed for the victim and the emergency medical teams. And then I went on to my volunteer class.
Linda didn't realize at the time that she was praying for her new husband, David. Running just after dawn, he'd been hit from behind at 55 miles per hour by a driver blinded by the sun. It would take a miracle for David to survive and regain a normal life again. Linda rushed to the hospital to find David in a coma.
His legs were heavily bandaged, his arm was bandaged. They had him intubated, and he looked like he was sleeping peacefully. Initially, the physicians told me that it wasn't that serious, that David would be laid up for a while with some broken legs and a broken arm, but that everything would be okay, and he would continue his career, and we could continue our marriage.
But the prognosis turned unfavorable as more detailed x-rays became available.
Reflexes are present, but weak.
David's shattered arms and legs could be set, but his skull had been fractured in 5 places. Any one of those fractures should have been fatal.
The doctor told me that David had suffered a severe closed head injury, and the brain was swelling, and that David was not expected to live more than a few hours.
But the days wore on, and David remained comatose. Physicians told Linda he was brain dead, but she refused to believe them. She knew from personal experience that miracles can happen, that prayers are heard. For 4 days, Linda kept a vigil by her husband's side as his condition deteriorated.
And we think it's time to begin to think about his organs being used for other
Ms.
people.
Shoeblack, you need to think how David can live on in others.
The doctors now advised discontinuing life support and planning for the donation of David's organs. Army administrators began making arrangements to bury David at Arlington Cemetery. Even the Army chaplain urged Linda to let David go.
I thanked the doctors for their information, and I told them that I knew that they were well educated and very professional in their career, but that there was a person who was over their knowledge and understanding of the situation. He was God, and that God was going to take care of everything because God is a healer.
The next day, Linda received the sign that she'd been praying for.
I don't want to get your hopes up, but I just observed what I think was some kind of glimmer of movement. Now, we got to run some tests.
The doctor noticed that there was a primitive response in David's eyes. And so that caused a flurry of activity among the medical team, and they all got together. They were going to go back in the room, and I slipped into the room before the team, and I leaned over to David, and I said, David, I want you to show them what God can really do. When they ask you to respond to a command, I want you to do it to the best of your ability. Okay, honey?
As Linda stood back to let the doctors do their exam, a doctor asked David to lift his unbroken right arm. Almost defiantly, David raised the fingers on his left hand and then his entire left arm, the bones of which remained unset. For medical personnel, it was a revelation.
They were shocked, happy, flabbergasted, said they'd never seen anything like it, and that maybe there's a God after all, and maybe miracles do happen.
A magical meeting and an astonishing cure has convinced David and Linda that miracles do happen. Today, after 2 years of physical therapy, David is once again running.
The lesson that's been learned that other people can learn is if there's something impossible, as many things in life are impossible, and it appears like nothing's gonna work, ask God.
This experience has changed me where I am not afraid of anything or anyone, that I know what it means to stand and fight for what is mine and what's been given to me.
I got a wake up that I never thought I'd get. It's made me realize God can do it if you ask it and expect it.